Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode. We really appreciate you joining us. This podcast really shows us how we can all learn, live, and thrive off of each other. By sharing our knowledge through our conversations, we will impart some knowledge whilst learning ourselves how to progress even further. Here is your host.
This is Mary Scott, and you are on the Personal Development Hub. And what an exciting guest we have today. I am so thrilled. I can't tell you how thrilled I am to have our beautiful guest today, Manseau from Maine, the east coast of the USA, which is kind of cool because I'm in today and she's in yesterday, and that always makes me giggle for a starter. Maya, thank you so much for giving up your time. I know that you're a superhuman being. I know that you have been very successful in photography, gluten-free, bakery. The list goes on and on. Real estate, and now you're on the small business path. That's actually the name of your business, correct?
It is. It is.
So a big, big, big heartfelt welcome to you. How are you today?
Thank you. I am fantastic.
Lovely. So let's talk about everything to do with personal development. Now, if you're live here today, this is really important. Your job, let me task you a job. Make some comments. Tell May you're here, you love what she's saying, and most of all, take the tips that she's going to give you, because I know there's going to be lots. So where will we start, Maya? What about we talk about your first encounter where you realised that personal development and the whole growth path was something for you?
Well, I think I've always been an observer of my life and of others. I've always been a problem solver. I've always been a helper of people. I think that probably about 12 years ago, I took one of my daughters to a dinner where there was a reading of holistic healers. And I was so surprised because she was like, oh my gosh, you are amazing. You have this work you need to do. And she's like, and I want to help you however you can. And I was surprised at that, that she was so sure that I had this future of helping people and in a different way than I already had been. So I really started to learn from her and started to delve into a bit more of a spiritual view of the world, which about a year after I met her, I really understood why that connection was so profound.
12 years ago.
Yeah.
Does that seem like yesterday, or was that a lifetime ago?
It was a lifetime ago. It really was a lifetime ago because shortly, like I said, about a year after I met her, I had a very tumultuous year. I had a health issue, and then my older daughter was diagnosed with leukemia, and she passed away.
Wow.
And
1 year.
Yeah, it was a very traumatic year, needless to say. And coming out of that, I don't even think that, I don't even think that it was really a choice that I took the deep dive at that point into my own personal development. I didn't think of it in that way, but she died the day before my 30th wedding anniversary, and everything in my life blew up, and I couldn't figure out why I kept waking up every day when she did not. And I knew that I needed to survive this. I didn't want to just survive it, but in the early days, I had to look at everything. when you go through something that is so traumatic, it changes how you view everything. And so when you step back and you look at, who am I without these relationships that I thought were there? And who am I without the life I was expecting to have? Because it wasn't the life I was ever actually going to have, but it was the life I was expecting to have. She had just gotten married. She was going to have children. We worked together. That was going to continue. I was going to be having babies and, grandbabies in the office on my knee. And within about a 3-month period, that whole life I expected to have was gone. And so, again, I didn't think of it as personal development at the time, but I was just like, I need to know peace again. What does peace look like? Because nothing in my life was recognizable. So I had to kind of build it all again from scratch.
Wow, like a blank canvas in some ways. And thank you for sharing that deeply personal event, massive cathartic time in your life. Things looked like this and now they look like that. All the plates were in the air, so to speak.
Yes.
This is a hard question, perhaps, but even though you never thought of it as personal development at that time, is there any one thing, just one thing that you know to be true that sustained you and helped you move forward? Perhaps not at the time, but no, mate, that's 2 questions. That's not fair. Let's just ask one question. What was the one thing that sustained you during that time, that tumultuous time?
I had a friend that gave me the simplest piece of advice that changed my life. And it was this. I literally sat in a chair and cried for like the first 2 months. And I truly believed I would never be okay again. I couldn't even imagine being okay again ever. And after about 2 months, she sat me down and she said, look, I know that you believe that you will never be okay again, but I can't let you continue to believe that, because if you believe that, that will become true. She said, so I want you to do this for me. Every time you think, I will never be okay again, she's like, I want you to stop yourself and I want you to say this instead. I will be okay someday, just not today.
It's a beautiful thing.
And it's a beautiful thing because, at that point, like, I didn't want to talk to anybody because most days were horrific. And then if I was having an okay day, it took just one thing to make it a bad day. And on the rare occasions I was having a good day, I would feel so incredibly guilty that I could have happiness and life and move forward without her there. So, I woke up the next morning and I was like, I am never going to be okay again. I'm like, wait, Ruth said, say this. And I'm like, I do not believe what I'm saying, but I will say the statement. And so I just kind of rewired my brain to allow for the possibility that I would be okay. And then soon that created okay days. And then the okay days were more frequent than the horrible days. And then I could have a good day and go, it's okay. It's okay to have a good day. So I would say that started my ability to make a choice to have my life be different than the way I felt it had landed.
And it started with Ruth giving you something that you simply had the awareness to catch what you were saying and change it to what she suggested. And it reminds me of a belief something that we just keep thinking. And that was the furthest thing from your mind. And yet you created a whole new narrative that allowed you to step back into baby steps. It wasn't straight away, but to step back into life as it was now, not how it was then. And that is a deeply personal development experience, if you like, to firstly witness what you're saying. This is very powerful. If you are listening, this is a very powerful moment. Listen well. Witness what you're saying, change what you're saying, change the narrative, and then simply keep repeating it. That was probably 100 times a day, I imagine, and you created a new belief.
Oh, definitely. But the other thing it allowed me to do was it allowed me on the bad days, because let's face it, I'm 10 years down the road since her death, and I still have bad days. But what it did was it allowed me to kind of twist it and say, I am okay all the time, but maybe not just today. And I know this will pass. So it really, it just flipped everything upside down for me in the best way possible.
Yes, it's in those times of great sorrow and despair, it's kind of like you're under the covers, and I bet you wanted to be. You just wanted to be. Go away, leave me alone. I'm in this chair crying for months. But that, how simple, Ruth at the time was asking a huge thing from you, but it reminds me of how simplistic growth can be. And it's not about the big things, it's about the little things, and just starting where you're at.
Yeah.
Have I understood that correctly?
Absolutely.
Okay, so these days, or no, that's not fair. I keep catching myself saying things, isn't it interesting? So since that time, walk us through some personal development experiences. You've had many successful businesses. My goodness, your photography business, you interviewed over, was it 250 people? Was that in 1 year? Is that correct?
We photographed over 250 weddings over about 9 years.
Oh, it was 9 years. I beg your pardon. Where did I get 1 year from? I must have made that up.
That's okay.
But you weren't just an ordinary wedding photographer, I understand.
No. It was so interesting because I had a passion for photography, and I had the joy of photographing several family weddings. And I had that moment where I had the successful day job, the corner office, the nice salary, the people working for me, and all of that. And I decided to walk away from all of that so that I could have more time with my family and be where it was important. And I am so grateful that I did that, because especially in hindsight, especially having lost my daughter, she eventually had joined me in the business, and we were business partners, and it was just, it added so many lovely layers to my relationship with her that I'm so grateful that I took the leap when I did. But when I thought about doing wedding photography, I thought about all of the things that added value to the couple's day. And so when I would have a couple come and talk to me about the possibility of photographing their wedding, I would talk them through their whole day. And I would give them all of the tips from all of the weddings that I had been to. Like, when you come down the aisle, if you stop and your first guest gets to you, you now have a receiving line. If you don't want that to happen, you need to be somewhere else so your guests can move forward. Timings of the day, like critical, like if we're going to do these photographs, we need to leave this much time, and so on and so forth. But I very quickly got to the point in the business where when I went to a wedding, I had my big camera bag with all my backup equipment, but I also had bobby pins and safety pins and sewing kits and combs and mirrors and you name it. I carried big umbrellas in my car. Now, as a photographer, none of that's needed. I could have gone and done my job and not had any of that. Nobody would have thought twice. But inevitably, I'd be with the bride and the bridesmaids getting ready, and somebody's like, have somebody got scissors? Oh my gosh, I need a comb. Oh my gosh, I need safety pins. And I'd be, I got it. Like, and I'd be pulling things out of my bags, tissues. Like, if you do weddings every weekend, you know what people around you are asking for. You just need to listen, and they're going to tell you what to take the next time. And so the feedback that I would get was, oh my gosh, like, you made our wedding day, like, it was so calm while we were getting ready, and you had everything we needed, and you just put out all these little fires, and my grandmother needed water and you had 2 seconds to give it to her. It's about making the dream come true. And a dream comes true for a couple getting married is that their day goes smoothly. So anything that I could do, I learned how to bustle dresses, because the bride is the one that would be shown how to bustle her dress, but she'd have it on and wouldn't be able to tell people how to bustle her dress, how to cut the cake, like things that I'm present for every single time that add so much value, that are so simple. Like, I went from not being formally trained in photography, not having ever owned my own business, to 3 years into the business, I was at a bridal show, and the guy who owned like the tux place in town comes up to my booth. He's like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to meet you. People are talking about you in the store all the time, and you're one of the best wedding photographers in the area. And I'm like, what? Me? But yes, I had the skills for photography. Yes, I was able to tap into the feeling of the wedding and be able to give them the pictures. But it was everything else that I did that added the tremendous value. And when you add value like that, your customers go out and sell your business for you. So
absolutely. And Maya, I've been thinking, because I'm fortunate to have heard that story before, but I'm thinking there's a foundation under that.
yes.
And it's all about personal development. Give me some words, if you would, that are personal development related, because yes, you were doing all those things, and I think it's very cool. I've never heard of a photographer doing that, incidentally. Someone that's been at lots of weddings, never seen that happen. But what was the foundation? What was underpinning your actions? If you think of emotively and all of those things, what are some words that you would give this?
I'm going to use the 3 words that I use all the time. The first is contentment. I was creating an environment with the wisdom that I had from picking up at all of these different events. I was creating contentment for them. They were like, oh, this feels good. This feels comfortable. The second one is joy, right? I was always so passionate about what I did and how I did it, that I brought a lot of joy to what I did. And because I loved it so much, I was willing to learn everything I could to help the people and to add to their lives. I talk to people a lot about direct impact and indirect impact, right? The direct impact is the photography. The indirect impact is all of the other 1,000 little things that I did that were so easy for me to do, that made everybody's life beyond the couple's day easier. And when I make their lives easier, the couple's day is so much easier. And then the third is meaningful connection, right? I was so honored to be a part of this. I named my business Life's Big Events. And my motto was, whether it's life's biggest event or whether it's life's smallest moment, I want to be there to capture it for you. And if you think about a wedding, it is a day full of precious moments, right? No moment was too small. And so from a personal development viewpoint, I was constantly learning, like, what did they ask for at this wedding they haven't asked for? Did I have it? Did I not have it? I think that the connections that we have with people when we work for them and with them, it's everything. Like, that is your business. Yes, I was doing wedding photography, but it was the connections I created with people. And I would say if anybody wants to work on the most important personal development, it's how do they connect to people? And how do they create meaning, and how do they add value to other people's lives?
Absolutely meaningful connection. If you have just joined us, I have Maya Manseau from Maine, the east coast of the USA. She has been an entrepreneur for many years and already has shared some potent examples of how to live a rich, meaningful, and also a full life. So do yourself a favor if you've just popped in, listen well, you can ask questions because Maya will come back and answer them, but give Maya some feedback. How is this for you? It's absolutely brilliant for me. I get to be right here in the moment, Maya, and everything you're talking about, meaningful connection. How powerful is that? And the whole notion of support, being in the background, being the solid rock, because the weddings I've been to, it's pretty crazy. The emotions are heightened and there's this expectation it's got to be perfect and better than any day I've ever had. And I can imagine that you would just be there solid. But, you can only do that if you're comfortable in your own skin. Is that something you would say about you?
Yes. Yes, it's so true, because you have to be able to use your own voice, and you have to be able to be confident in what you believe in order to help someone else. Because if you're worried about what someone else is thinking, you're going to be like always trying to please whoever's next, or whoever's last, or whoever complained the most. And anytime you're in business, you're going to have people who complain. You're always going to have things that don't go right. There's always, like wedding days, the weather is something that nobody can control. And, the couple being very late for the wedding, and then my photography time is squeezed because the venue still has the dinner, the chicken's going to get rubber if we go late there. So it's always being creative and being light on your feet and being able to move with things as they go. And that leads to, another point. I always saw myself as part of the team of vendors who was helping at the wedding. And so I always made a point to go and talk to the officiant to see what rules they had about where a photographer could be, or when photographs can be taken. I would talk to the limo drivers. I can't tell you how many times the limo drivers are like, I know you're taking photos and I know they're late. I know it's not your fault, but I've got the next couple I've got to be at, I got to go pick them up in 30 minutes. I'd be like, I'll make it happen. I would always ask, this is a great question. I would always ask the couples when they book me, I would say, now, are there any family issues I need to be aware of? And I would get one of two responses. no, what do you mean? I'm like, don't worry, you don't have any. And then the other response I got was, oh yeah, my mom and dad are divorced and they won't be in the same picture. And I'd be like, do you want them in the same picture? And they would say, yeah. I'm like, I'll make it happen. But what I would do is I just had this, I'd place the bride and groom, and then I'd place a parent, and then I'd place the other parent, and I'd be like, now just step up. And they're not gonna tell me no. As long as I'm doing it quick and keeping everything moving. But if I had gone into the weddings cold where there were these tensions and I was not aware, life would have been much uglier for everything. Those situations have got to be handled confidently, like this is every day. Let's keep it moving. So sometimes even just knowing to ask that question is a huge thing.
Where did you learn all this? Like, I know you're not 21, you're a bit younger than me, but you're not 21.
No.
So these are skills, like, have you always had those, like meaningful connection, peace, joy? Where did you learn all that?
I believe every soul that is born comes into life to have a series of experiences that leads them to their sacred purpose. And I was born into a family with a fair amount of dysfunction. I had older siblings and a family situation that was very tense from when I was born. And I have always felt like I came into this world to create peace in my family. And so I would say it's a theme that has run through my life. I feel like I was born with some wisdom around that. I also feel like I am very spiritual in that I connect in my own way to my own higher power. And I view my life as a collaboration between myself and my guides. So I won't take full credit for how I know what I know. I just feel like I've been given this beautiful gift of helping people create peace in their life. And because that is my goal, and to help people find their sacred purpose so they can create this beautiful alignment of peace in their life, I feel like I've just had this really unique set of experiences so that I can do the work I'm here to do.
That's absolutely awesome. And if there are people here today listening that are unsure or nervous about their higher powers, would you have any tips for them to feel safe, secure, to allow that connection? And there might be people here saying, oh, what's all that? That sounds like rubbish. So any words for that group, if in fact they are here in our group?
I believe there are as many ways to God, divine love, the universal powers, whatever anybody wants to call it. I believe there's as many paths to that source as there are people alive. It's different for everyone. And so, I was brought up in a Christian church, and parts of it I agree with, and parts of it I found very hypocritical from a young age. I have explored Buddhism. I have explored paganism. Not in depth, really, in any of those, but I think that when you find what resonates with your soul, I believe that you'll know. And if it doesn't feel safe, if it feels creepy, if it feels uncomfortable in any way, then that's not the way for you. I believe that there is a way for everyone, and they'll know the path. The biggest thing is that you have to open to it, whatever that path is. And for the people who are like, that doesn't exist, that connection doesn't exist, maybe they're here in this life to experience it not being that way.
Lovely. Well said. Now, this is Mary Scott. We are in the Personal Development Hub, and my guest today is Manseau. If you haven't seen or been part of this interview before, stay tuned. This is absolutely awesome information and a deeply soulful woman. Maya, one of the things that I'm hearing all through this conversation is awareness of yourself and awareness of others. Tell me how you view all that. How important is that notion of self-awareness and awareness of others to you?
I think that we can't be aware of others until we're aware of ourselves. Because if you aren't aware of yourself and where you end and they begin, it's really hard to distinguish who you are. And it's really hard to distinguish who they are. I think self-awareness has been key to my life and my personal development, because up until my daughter died, I was the helper for everyone. If you had a problem and I could fix it, it was done. And that wasn't actually always really true, because I didn't know where I ended and they began. So I would fix it in the manner I would fix it for me. And that doesn't mean it would work for them. When my daughter died, it became so clear to me that I was this fixer for everyone else, because I stood in absolute deficit of having anything to give to anybody else. And when I started to make decisions that at that point felt like it was like survival. I was in survival mode. If I don't figure out how to give to myself, I am not going to make it. That's how it felt. So I started to become extremely aware of where I ended and where they began. And so as I made decisions on how to fill my own cup up, the most common thing people said to me is, you need to stop acting that way. You're not acting like yourself. And that was so humorous at one level to me, because I'm like, no, for the first time in my life, I am acting like myself. This is me. Get used to it.
Yes.
And I was very backed into a corner to get to that point. But it was critical. That self-awareness was critical if I was going to heal and if I was going to grow. So it's just a fundamental, if you're a yes person, try saying no and seeing what happens. just for the fun of it. Just for the fun of it. You're not responsible. And that was the other thing I had to learn. Really, really. I learned this while Lindsay was sick and dying. You have to set boundaries, and you have to decide. And I don't know why this story is coming to me, but here it is. So we reached a point in her illness where she said to me, Mom, the angels say it's time to come home. And I need you to tell dad and the doctors and her husband. And I need it to not be a fight. Okay. I will make all that happen. Now, would I have rather done anything else? Yes. But I found myself in the middle of the night on the phone, in the hallway at the hospital, on the phone with the doctor, defending my daughter's right to die. Because the doctors didn't want to let her go. She's 23. It was clear she wasn't going to make it. It wasn't even a question, but they didn't want to give up. So he was saying, well, you have the power of attorney. You can decide whether or not she's lucid, and you can decide whether or not this is the route we go. And I said, this is not my choice. If I had any reason to not be having this conversation with you, we would not be having this conversation. But this is her choice. She is lucid. She is in pain. She is tired, and she knows it's time. So I will honor her, and I will honor her path. Now, we did that. After she died, even though I have never doubted that that was the right decision, I had tremendous guilt that I had fought to let my daughter die. Like, that's not a thing moms does.
No.
So in my struggle of that, I had to become very, very aware of her path, where she ended and where I began, and then where I started, and then where I ended and where the doctor began. And I think that really was like the beginning of my hyper awareness of that self-awareness and the importance of it.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I found myself, my heart racing, on the phone to the doctor.
Yeah.
Making your daughter's wishes known. It's close to my heart, as you can imagine.
I can.
And what I'm hearing, and help me with this, is that, is it true then that maybe a lot of people don't know where they begin and end, and that they come together with another without knowing that they give up themselves? This is probably a topic for a whole masterclass, but
yeah.
Because my observation, and I'm just wondering if this is what you're saying because you're alluding to it in some ways, because you've been very clear about where I begin and end, and when your daughter begins and end. So is it your belief or your observation, probably is a better word, that too often people are not standing on their own, they're molding together or coming together? I mean, this whole thing of codependence came out of that. But do you think that people, because of lack of awareness, lose themselves in another?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I did it my whole life, right? It's hard because when you're a helper, you feel responsible for the other person. You feel responsible for the outcome, right? The fact is that when you stand in your truth and you speak your truth, you allow everyone else to also do that for themselves. I was not responsible for the doctor responding in the way he did. That's on him. I hope he learned. I don't know, and it doesn't really matter, right? I think in medical situations, I think in marriages, I think in parent-child relationships, right? It's so easy for us to lose ourselves in someone else, or to be to shrink wrap ourselves in the idea of what someone else thinks we are.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. There's a line right there. Shrink wrap.
Yeah.
Love it.
But it's true, right? As a child, I didn't expand past where my mom was probably the more challenging one. I didn't allow myself to expand past her level of comfort. And I think we do that with a lot of people. I think couples do that a lot in relationships, right? Especially women, right? We don't want to be bigger than the man is comfortable with. And that's definitely a stereotype, but I think there's always like, anytime there's an uneven level of an uneven playing field, or anytime there is a more dominant and a less dominant, we shrink to fit the wrapper we're given. Yes. And so when you take that off and you go, no, this is who I am. It's not my responsibility of anybody else, whether they like that, accept that, whatever. They get to have their honest and actual reaction to it. And if it's not a fit, it's not a fit. And if it is a fit, it's more beautiful than you can possibly imagine. Like that. It's like if you try to be this and you're actually that, and you find someone who wants that, that's beautiful.
Well, that is about expansion. That is about growth.
It is.
And the shrink wrap is about being stifled. Some people, I have observed some people not even being able to get the words out. But this is so powerful and empowering. Look, I'm not a favorite person with that word. I don't like using it that much, but to be fully expanded and know where you begin and end is such a gorgeous, gorgeous thing.
It is.
And what you're saying is, if you have the capacity to do this, that you are demonstrating on a daily basis for others to follow. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, absolutely.
So if I'm on this call today and I feel like I'm a bit shrink wrapped, I love that. I think I'll be borrowing that. What would you say in order to get this?
I'd ask them who owns their soul. Because if you're not in charge, you don't even know how magnificent you are. After we had stopped treatment for Lindsay, she was lying in the hospital in her bed one day with her eyes closed. And she wasn't looking at me. It wasn't about the physical me at all. But she's laying there. She'd been quiet for a really, really long time. And then she says, in the sweetest voice you could imagine, "Mom, you are so beautiful. Don't let anyone ever tell you you're not." And I looked at her and she's not looking at me. And I thought, oh my God, she sees the beauty of my soul. And for the first time in my life, I did too. So if there's anything, if I could only say one thing to everybody for the rest of my life, it would be, you are so beautiful. Don't let anybody ever tell you that you're not. And if you can let that touch your heart, the shrink wrap's going to pop off.
Beautifully said. My goodness. I want to just keep talking. I think we could go for we could for a very long time. I think we'll leave it there because that's such a beautiful, beautiful way to end it. And, I have a deep appreciation for you giving up your time, because I know that you are one, well sought after lady. And I know how precious time is. We can never get it back, as we well know. But, the other thing that I want to acknowledge is your deep sharing, your willingness to be vulnerable here. And, I'm a great believer in vulnerability and strength in vulnerability, which you have clearly demonstrated today, and hopefully given other people some courage to step into their own greatness. And I think you'll be someone that I'll be inviting back and at another time to the Personal Development Hub. Thank you so much, and what a pleasure. And thank you, everyone. Once again, this is Mary Scott. You're on the Personal Development Hub. My goodness, what a enriching time we've had with Maya today. Do leave comments, do ask questions. Both Maya and I will be in there. And I know there's lots of people listening. I know there's lots of people commenting. I hope that's you. I hope you've been impacted by our very short interview. I was thinking that Maya and I could probably do a complete weekend workshop, just speaking with her. She's nodding. So thank you for being here, offering your comments. And Maya, another big thank you to you. Have a beautiful day. Bye-bye, everyone.
This week's episode has come to an end. But the fun doesn't have to stop here. If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback, head over right now to Twitter and Facebook and like, share, and get involved. Join us next time.